So a lot of pastors and chaplains and people who work in the healthcare field, anybody who might work with a dying patient or a dying person, often say that those people have similar regrets when they're getting near the end of their life. And a lot of times they'll say things like, hey, we hear that people will say that they regret that they worked too hard or that they worked too much in life. Or they'll say, I regret that I didn't love enough or allowed myself to be loved enough. Or something along the lines of, I wish I had taken more risks and I regret that I didn't. And so as we're going through Ecclesiastes, we're in part 2. Last week, our themes were meaninglessness and enjoyment, right? The author, who is possibly Solomon, and the character, the teacher, also possibly Solomon, is using wisdom to explore the human experience and condition and trying to determine the meaning of life, right? So by the end of your life, are you going to regret things like, oh, I wish I had taken more risks. I wish, I hadn't worked so hard and worked so much, right? And so that's kind of what the book of Ecclesiastes is about. Solomon was known for wisdom, at least in his early part of his reign. And so in chapter 1, verse 13, he writes, I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. Right? So this is kind of his purpose for the book. And his conclusion in chapter, he actually writes it right in the beginning, right? In chapter 1, verse 2, he says, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless, everything is meaningless. Right? And so people know that about Ecclesiastes, and they're just thinking, wow, that's really depressing. Like, I thought, like, what am I supposed to do with this faith that's like, says, oh, everything is meaningless, right? And so, but what we understood from last week, I'm trying to summarize real quick here, is that he's not saying everything is meaningless. He actually is saying that, but there's more to that, right? What he's saying is a wise person understands the ultimate meaninglessness of everything because of our finite nature and doesn't live in that space, right? The wise person understands that, because we're just people who live for a short period of time, it's like, okay, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, like, it is kind of meaningless, but we're not supposed to have our heads and thinking about that kind of stuff all the time, okay? And the wise person lives in the here and now and cares about the life around them, okay? So it's like the wise person understands that in the grand scheme of things are a little bit meaningless because they're finite and the universe is so big, but the wise person then lives in the here and now and cares about those things, okay? And it's because, ultimately, this is what God has given us and given them. And so in chapter 3, verse 22, it says, so I saw that there is nothing better for a person than to enjoy their work because that is their lot. All right, and then in chapter 5, verse 18 to 19, it says, this is what I have observed to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor, for this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and be happy in their toil, this is the gift of God, right? And again, this is not a license for wickedness, right? It's not a license to just then go nuts and do whatever. And we talked also last week about how this, even when I say this, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel completely right there, and you're going to struggle with this. And that's because deep down, we can't help as human beings to look at the eternal and kind of want a piece of it, right? Even though we're finite, deep down as people, we look at what's forever and eternal, and we're just like, there's something there, and I want it. And that's normal, because that's how God has created us. And this gap between the finite and the infinite is bridged by Jesus, right? That's where Jesus fits in here, is that, yeah, we're finite, we're all going to die, but we look at the eternity and we're like, there's something there. And Jesus is like, yes, there is, right? And and to get to eternity, to God, like, that's through me, right? And so Jesus bridges that gap, and he restores our relationship with God, right? Today, our themes, last week was meaninglessness and enjoyment. Today, our themes are time and judgment, right? And really, it's kind of focused on death. Okay, I'll just say it right there. It's kind of focused on death because everyone dies eventually, right? That's just humanity. You'll live in a certain number of years. Maybe you'll get to triple digits. Maybe you won't. But everyone dies eventually. And then when we die, we are all going to be judged by God, right? So it's like, that's again kind of a downer here. So what is like the teacher trying to tell us in his conclusion here? Okay, I want to read verse 11 to chapter 11, verse 7 to 8. That gives us a first little bit, right? It says, "Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. However many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. But let them remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Everything to come is meaningless." Right? And so here, the teacher, right, possibly Solomon, is saying, enjoy your life now, because the future is uncertain, and death comes to us all. Right? And it's like, okay. But here's the thing. It's almost like what he's saying here. He's like, he understands, hey, I'm about to write this. This is not going to make me feel very good. He almost understands that, and he understands that what he's saying could cause us to despair. And I think what he's saying here, right, it's like however many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them, right? There's a podcast that I like to listen to, and the two hosts are Beth Silvers and Sarah Stewart Holland, and they always end their podcast. I love the way they end it on hey, you're about to go to the weekend. They always say, have the best weekend available to you, right? And they explained it once, and it's like, listen, if anyone says, hey, have a great weekend, right? Well, what's great, right? Somebody may be like, well, I have the resources to go on this weekend trip. I can do all these things. Somebody else might say, well, I don't, all I can do is sit at home, right? And it's a very different. So when we say have the best weekend, it's like, well, okay. It's like, what's, And so they say have the best weekend available to you. Like wherever you have, whatever lot God has given you, they hope that you'll enjoy. And I think that's what's happening here. It's like however many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. Like with the lot that God has given you. All right. And then it moves on in chapter 11, verse 9 to 10. It says, "You who are young, be happy while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. So then, banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless." Okay? And so the teacher here is saying, hey, young people, enjoy your youth. And that is so true, okay? Those of us who are a little bit older, we all of us, whether we say it out loud or we don't, we all look back to our younger selves, right? I look back and look at, 16-year-old Gene or 20-year-old Gene, and you know what? We always have these kinds of thoughts. We always think, man, I had so much free time back then? Why did I ever think I was busy? Right? When I was younger, I was like, oh man, I'm busy. As a young adult, I'm like, oh, I got this to do and this to do. Then I had 4 kids, and it's like, oh, so that's what busy means, right? Young people, I know you think you're busy. You will never have more free time than you have now. Enjoy it. You are not busy, okay? Enjoy it. I'm not saying you don't have anything to do. I'm not saying like you aren't like busy. I'm saying you're not really that busy, right? One day you will experience that, and I'm saying enjoy it now. I'm not trying to like put you down, but enjoy your youth, right? When we get older, we look back and just think, I looked so good back then. Why did I ever fret about my appearance? Right? And that is like one of those things where I look at young people and they often have like such like a negative view on themselves. I'm like, you have no idea how handsome and beautiful you guys all are, right? Like you are like in the best time of your life. Like enjoy it, know it, have confidence, right? Because we all get older and wrinkles come and all that kind of stuff. In your youth, enjoy it. I look back, and a lot of us look back, and we think, I didn't have many responsibilities back then. Why didn't I take more risks? Right? I think when you're younger, you think there's all this stuff you have to do, and you're responsible. You're not responsible for much. Like when you become a parent, you're like literally responsible for like a life. Like you don't do your job, like it's like, oh, hey, there's some responsibility there, right? And so when you're younger, like enjoy the fact that your responsibilities are few, right? And take risks. Like if you have like a goal, go for it. Your responsibilities are little. And of course, not all risks are wise. So I'm not saying like take dumb risks, right? I'm saying take good risks, right? And so that's one of the things the teacher is saying is like youth should enjoy your youth, right? Like enjoy it. And the second part of it is, but remember, God will ultimately judge you. And it's not to bring condemnation, but the teacher here is wise enough to know that enjoying your youth can quickly lead to a lot of decisions that do not please the Lord. Right? Like I think the teacher understands that. I'm saying I understand. I'm like, oh yeah, you gotta be careful how you say that because it's very easy to say, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna enjoy my youth, right, and then make a lot of terrible decisions, right? And this is history, right? Back in the 60s and 70s. Now this is even before my time, right? Back in the 60s and 70s, there was a time of free love, right? And all these young people were like, free love, this is great, and that caused a lot of problems, okay? About 10, 15 years ago in the 2010s, right, we had the arrival of YOLO, right? You only live once, right? So I know, they're like, YOLO, that's such a dumb acronym for the adults. We're like 2010s, yeah, like if you're in your 30s, like YOLO, we say that, like, right? Right? But that was like that's just like the next iteration of free love, right? It's like, well, I'm gonna do whatever. You only live once. I'm young now, right? And so the teacher is saying, hey, also, like, enjoy your youth. But just remember, eventually, God will judge all of us. So, like, keep that in mind, okay? And then he goes on in chapter 12, 1 to 7. That's what we read earlier. I'm only going to read verse 1. Again, he said, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Right? And so what he's saying here is it's kind of like, hey, remember God when you're young, right? Even though like enjoy your youth, but remember God when you're young, before like your physical body starts to like fall apart on you, right? And that's going to happen sooner than you think. Okay, I know for me, I noticed a significant physical decline at 25. Right? When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was like, yeah, I'm at my peak athletically and all that kind of stuff. 25 is not that old. 25, I was like, oh, I'm not the same anymore. When I was 27, that was the first time I I pulled my calf muscle, I injured it. Now I have this incredible gift that I can do it on command. Like I won't do it for you because it hurts, but if I said, hey, I'm just gonna pull my calf right now, I can just like try hard and boom, it's gone, right? It's just the way it is. And then the University of Stanford had a major study that looked at that when we actually hit our mid-40s and then early 60s, that those are major like aging. It's like we don't age at the same rate. It's like we hit this wall, and that there's actually like a major molecular change, right? And so I'm in my mid-40s right now, and I'm like, oh yeah, I think that's true, right? One of the things I've noticed is my memory is shot. Like my memory compared to what it was even in my 30s is just not the same. Like we all do this, but like when I do this a lot now, where it's like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I in this room? You know, like I'm doing things now. This is like confession time, right? Where I will literally be looking for something and it's in my pocket or in my hand. And it's not like quick, it's like, where is this thing? I remember that I just had it, and it's infuriating, but I've noticed that in my 40s now, it's happening more often. This is just what it is, right? I joke with this to my kids because it's true, that I get most of my physical injuries now when I'm sleeping, right? And you're like, what does that mean? It's because I know I'm like, my body isn't what it used to be, so I'm careful about what I do physically. I'm careful about not pushing myself. I have a conscious ability to control that. I can't control myself when I sleep. And if I sleep in a weird position where my neck is crooked or whatever, it's like pain for an entire week, right? Last year, I had to go through physical therapy for a while. Partly it was because AJ, my fourth, is like a giant, and he's just heavy, right? But also, if I sleep on my side, which I like to do, and my shoulder just gets kind of pressed, I like pinching in my shoulder. I had to go to physical therapy to do like, you know, with the bands, right? Really helps. But I'm just saying, like, I'm getting hurt in my sleep. I don't get hurt like around the house, around the day, because I'm like careful. I can't be careful when I sleep. Like that's happening to all of us. It's going to happen to you as well, okay? And so remember God while you're young before your body falls apart. And now, so now so what is it? This is really depressing, right? This is really depressing. What does this have to do with our faith, and what do we take from this? Do we just go home and be like, okay, what I'm taking from this message today is I should be really depressed, and I should just curl up and binge watch a show until that, you know, I feel better? No. There is actually a lot here, right? So how does the teacher here conclude, right? It's in chapter 12, verse 13 to 14. He says, now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. All right, so after all of this, he says this is it. Fear God and keep his commandments. All right? In the end, this is what the teacher is saying is the meaning of life. Fear God and keep his commandments, right? The fear God. Remember, when we say the word, like, when we say the phrase fear God, it means respect. It means be in awe of God. It means understanding that God is infinite and we are not. And understanding that ultimately we can trust God. Right? So that fear, the word fear God has that meaning to it. Okay? Is to like look at God and understand that God is so big. He's infinite. We are not, but we can trust God. And to keep his commandments, that's basically called obedience. Right? And that's one of those things where it's like, we hate that word obedience because then we have to obey, right? And we don't want to do that, right? But obedience here, we have to remember why do we want to obey God? Why should we obey God? It's not just because God is powerful and he can smite you if you don't, right? That's not the point. We obey God. Yes, he is mighty, but we obey God because he is worthy, right? And ultimately, we obey God because he gave himself in Jesus, right? It's for those reasons, that is why, as believers, we are called to choose to obey God. I mean, Ecclesiastes is ultimately saying that the meaning of life is to trust and obey God, right? And this is what fullness of life means in John 10:10, right? It says, Jesus says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full, right? God says, I want you to have life that's to the full, right? And a lot of times we're like, well, what does that mean? Like, does that mean I'm going to get a lot of riches? Am I going to mean I'm going to do that? No, like, it's going to be, like, I love how, like, Jesus doesn't then say, here's what it means. He just kind of says it and just says, are you going to trust me? Are you going to trust that when I say, you may have life and life have it full, that will be worth it, okay? And I just want to finish with this because I know that a lot of you are just sitting here going like, thanks, Gene. I reject all of that. I'm going after my goals. Don't tell me what to do. But thank you for your message, right? And I get that. I get that. I'm not blaming you for feeling that. I know you're feeling it for some of you. I just want to share with you a little bit of like my story very briefly, because if you took the world's perspective, most people in the world would say that I've completely wasted my life. Like I had potential to do something and I threw it all away. And they would say I completely wasted it. As a kid, I did what my parents raised me to do. Like I achieved it, right? Like so many of you young people here are working so hard in school to try to get to the best college or whatever, right? I went to an Ivy League school, so I achieved it, right? You guys are trying hard in your sports. I played D1 sports. I didn't just play. I was like a 4-time Ivy League champion. I did it, right? I had a great internship in college. Everything that a lot of your parents are really hoping for. They're pushing you to do. I got it. I did it, right? And then in the end, I said, maybe I'll be a pastor instead, right? That's what God called me to do, right? Even my mom was my mom was real upset when I told her, God's going to call me to be a pastor. She talked to our pastor to be talk Gene out of this. And then my pastor's talk to him. I kind of agree with him. My mom was upset. Now, my mom came around, because both my parents are, lovely believers who are very godly, right? But even my mom was a little bit like that. It took her a while to kind of okay, go be a pastor, right? My dad, on the other hand, because he I think he was more oh, I work so hard, I hate doing this. Yeah, good job, good for you, buddy, right? But I'm telling you, I did it, right? And all I can say is this: yes, what I achieved in life compared to what a lot of your goals are right now, and a lot of what the world says this should be your goal. I didn't come close. I didn't get that, right? I don't have any of that. And so the world will look at me and say, wow, man, look at this guy. Look at the path he took. I think he became pastor. How'd that work out? I think it worked out great, right? When you follow the Lord, yeah, it doesn't look like, what the world says this is what success looks like. But I so often just feel like I'm the most blessed person. So often when I just, when I'm walking around and I'm praying and meditating or whatever, I just think all I can do is be thankful, right? And yeah, there's been hardships in life. I'm not saying, I'm just but in the end, I'm not, of course, hopefully the end is not that near for me yet. But at this point, I am just the decision. I'm not talking about the decision to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. I'm saying the decision to then say, God, wherever you lead, yeah, I'll go. That has worked out really well for me. Like, I'm loving it, right? Like, I love the life that God has given me. Even if the rest of the world would say, like, oh, you're all right, buddy, you can do that. Right? And I share that just because I know the pressure you guys are under. This is just in our culture and our world. And I know it's easy to hear all this and just be like, right? And so I just want to share, like, there's a guy up here who's like literally like alive and, right? I'm just saying, I'm living it now, and it has been the best decision of my life, right? And so let me pray for us, and I just pray that like that will be real in your heart too. I'm not saying all of you, like, oh, God's going to call all of you into ministry. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, wherever God leads, like, that's what you should pursue, because that's where you will have life and life to the full. Let's pray.